throws back down the middle of the field. It is caught, and on the run at the 35, at the 40, Buffalo Bulls first down. That's Marcus Rivers.
My name is Marcus Rivers.
Nice catch by Marcus Rivers.
Number 2 wide receiver.
Hands it to Terrell Jackson, who's going to look to throw. He throws into the end zone, and it is caught. It's a Buffalo touchdown. Marcus Rivers.
You're in the bullseye.
Welcome inside the bullseye as we take you inside UB Athletics. I'm Paul Peck, radio voice of Buffalo Bulls football here at UB Stadium, where an enthusiastic and excited crowd of over 18,000 came for homecoming. The parties, the tailgates, the ceremony, the crazy fans, you got a little bit of all of it. But in the end, that crowd went home disappointed as the Bulls lose to the Connecticut Huskies by a score of 17-3. Head coach Jeff Quinn of UB said, in specifically referring to his senior quarterback Chaz Anderson, that this one stings, but that could apply to all the Bulls players and all the Bulls fans. We will look back at a very disappointing defeat here on Homecoming 2011.
To be able to go toe-to-toe with UConn, the way our kids competed and fought, I was proud of their efforts.
We will break down this defeat. More from Coach Quinn and the players after the game is coming up a little later on in the Bullseye. We'll also have our top 5 plays of the week and our Karuba collisions of the week, which you can vote for the best one at BuffaloBulls.com. I am joined by Bulls radio color analyst Jim Kubiak. And Jim, you and I have talked about this on the air. Whenever you play a Big East team, any BCS team, you almost have to play a perfect game. The Bulls did a lot of good things, but they didn't quite play the perfect game, and ultimately that's why the score was what it was.
Well, Paul, they did a lot of good things. Defensively, coming in, they were giving up 194 yards per game, and they shut UConn down to less than 100 yards on the ground. I think that's an enormous effort by the UB defense, and couple of missed tackles really cost Buffalo, but overall, looking at offensively and defensively, I think they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, those 2 big plays, the 2 long catches by UConn's Nick Williams and some missed tackles by the Bulls, really wind up being, you boil it down to a play or 2. Those were the 2 plays that made the difference. What could the Bulls have done better on those plays?
Well, I think when you're in those situations, when you're in position, as Coach Quinn said, when you're in position, you just have to finish. And I've heard Coach Quinn say that over and over, just finishing. And, just a couple plays short of finishing, and Buffalo has an opportunity in the 4th quarter to tie this football game.
Yeah, Coach Quinn also said we need to do better offensively. The offense struggled at times, could never really get in a rhythm. Now, Brandon Oliver did have another solid game, didn't get his 100 yards, but he was over 80 yards rushing. But the passing game, and mostly because of what Connecticut did on defense, just couldn't seem to find any kind of rhythm.
Connecticut's a good defensive football team, and they have a good defensive front, and they were getting a lot of pressure. That's a group that's played together quite a bit as well, so a lot of experience. They did a good job, and they took away big plays from Buffalo. Buffalo was just left with some dink and dunks and trying to pound the ball into a big defensive front, and Buffalo did a good job, but just wasn't enough.
Let's talk again about the 2 dominating players so far this season for UB. At times they were dominant in this game. I mentioned Brandon Oliver, over 80 yards rushing for him. He just keeps going and finds little holes and little cracks. I really thought he was going to break one at one point. Never really happened.
Well, he's just fun to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a guy that does north and south. He does a great job of getting low, and he's powerful, and he just gives everybody energy. I think everybody feeds off of him, and he's just so close. It's so great to see what he's done last year and the improvements that this team has made on his back. I think it's a real testament to the kind of person he is.
And another game for Khalil Mack where he fills up the stat line. I believe 8 total tackles. He had another sack. He had another 2 tackles for loss. He came into the game tied for the nation's lead in tackles for loss. Doesn't matter who he's playing. Doesn't matter the caliber of the people across the line from him. He is shaping up, maybe, do you think, as one of the most dominating players we've ever seen play here?
Well, I think you're 100% right, and I was going to piggyback on that and say he's the best defensive player in the MAC, and he's a guy that makes plays. There's no cutback lanes when he's on the backside, and he just seems to always make things happen, and Bill Inge, I'm sure, is just tickled to have them.
Well, it's a disappointing defeat for the Bulls, but not a lot of time to think much about it because they have another very big test, another one of those BCS schools. 100,000 people clad in Tennessee orange are greeting the Bulls this coming weekend. That's going to be quite an interesting game and quite a test for the Bulls.
You know, I think when Buffalo goes and looks at tape of Tennessee, don't worry who you're going to play. Go in there and try to fix the things that maybe you didn't do right in this football game and really focus on yourself and just executing. I think that's the best advice. You know, some of my experiences at Navy going to play Notre Dame when they were top 10 in the country, focus on what you do well and try to execute it.
Well, Coach Quinn will have more on the matchup with the Volunteers coming up later on in Bullseye, but right now let's take you inside the locker room. Post-game comments from the Bulls head coach and some of the Bulls players.
You need to put the points on the board, absolutely. And we talked to our offense. I said the way we need to manage the game is be able to take great care of the ball and then move the chains. And when we do get our moments, because there's going to be a few moments that the red zone is going to come available to us, we're going to get close enough to put points in there. And we need to convert. To be able to outrush them 126 to their 80. And they have been holding teams to 80 yards rushing. I felt good about that. We just weren't able to, put the points on the board, and that's obviously very disappointing.
We have confidence that we can get right back into them and capitalize the next time. I mean, you can't dwell on a couple of missed opportunities. You got to keep looking at the next play and keep focusing on. If we sat there and dwelled on one red zone play, then the whole game would have been over. So, we kept moving on, we kept pushing, and we kept playing. We're going to look at why we didn't do as well in the red zone as we thought, and then we're going to make changes, make adjustments, and then so against Tennessee, we'll be putting the ball in the red zone.
We can play football. There hasn't been a team that we played all year that we weren't as good as physically, without a doubt. We need to execute the game plan. Our coaches do a great job providing us with the right game plan. We have to execute that. I think if we do that, we'll be fine.
They're playing hard. They're doing some of the things that, you really love to see as a head football coach. And it's always disappointing. It's hard to find the right words to say to a group of kids. Says, what do you actually say? You play hard. You played UConn. They're in your stadium. What a great evening, homecoming. And we weren't able to deliver on it. And, I told them it's 24 hours and we need to get back because Tennessee's up next.